Okay, this is Brian Hinde again here in the Columbia River Gorge. I'm at my shop, and this is video number 4 of our 5 series on how basic, simple concept that I believe how boards work. Today we're talking about construction. We're not going to get heavy detail, but give you some basic ideas. You know, in composite world, most things are made in a mold. A 2-piece mold most of the time. You lay it up, you crack it out, and there's your product. In the world of windsurfing, our tool is the shape blank. We shape it, and then we wrap around, vacuum bag, glass it, whatever it is to come up with the strength. So really the tool is the shape blank. All our design, energy, and everything goes into that art. It's a sculpture that has to create a function. At the same time, they got to stay together, and that's pretty much what we're talking about today, is how do you keep them together? You know, over the years there's been, you know, in the production world, a lot of different technology, blow molding, 2-piece mold, thermal molding. When the world was really cranked up in the 80s, there was every company had their way, and they were telling you how much better it was. And then came the glass board. It was traditionally called a glass board, which is basically made just like a surfboard. Most of us guys like myself came out of surfing, and you basically shape the core, shape your blank, you airbrush it, you put 3 layers of glass on the top, 2 layers of glass on the bottom. Then came the sandwich technology, vacuum bagging. And you take a high density foam, you shape the core, you vacuum it to it. A lot of times just the bottom, depending on what it is. I do a hybrid like that, where I just vacuum the bottom with a urethane core, or you sandwich top and bottom. You can use different thicknesses of sheet foam, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, different densities. So we're going to try to put this world together for you in the simplest way possible, so you can get a better understanding. I got a few samples here. So let me check my notes here. And it's all about weight versus the strength and where you want to be. You know, some people think heavier board work better in heavier wind. Some people think not. You know, it's all coming down to, again, finding where you're getting the biggest smile for your buck. Let's first talk about what the cores are. There's basically 3 types of cores used in windsurfing today, and we build all 3, which represent 3 different weights. You have your PU foam. For years we called it Clark foam. Nowadays, since Clark's been gone for about 6 years, we call it US Blank makes these. It's a dense, closed cell. It's white. That's what surfboards are made out of. That's what glass boards are made out of. Then you have extruded polystyrene. It's pink board from the lumberyard, blue board from the lumberyard. For years we had a brand of blanks called SDS, which they still make a lot of surfboards out of them. A few people are making sailboards out of them. I make a line of sailboards out of this pink foam. And it's a closed cell, produces the board. This is our middleweight, and it produces the board to be a little lighter than glass. Then you have expanded polystyrene. You got the little beads. These are the ones that need to be vented that take on water. And it's just how it is. If you want real light, you're going to have to worry about the whole water thing, which is quite normal in the world of windsurfing. If you were to take marbles, put them in a jar, you can still pour water in the jar. And that's kind of where you're at here. That's the way I look at it. Water goes around each one of these little beads. I can pull it off. That's the bead. And how they do is they have a block of foam, a mold, and they said, okay, do you want to have 3/4 pound density? And I'll talk about density here in a few minutes. They pour X amount of beads in there. They shoot it with hot benzene gas, basically cook it, bake it, and that'll expand into the shape of that block, whether it's 10 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, whatever the case may be. By putting so many beads in there that you can calculate how the weight of the core is. Now, weights of foam is calculated by cubic feet, here in America that is. So if it's 3/4 pound EPS, and a cubic foot weighs 3/4 pound. Urethane is basically 2 pounds. The extruded polystyrene that I'm using is about 1.35. It varies a little bit depending on the time of day, maybe when you get it, or if it's a Friday or a Monday. But what we really wanted to talk about is whether it's the sandwich technology seems to be the rule of law nowadays, and they sandwich wood, they sandwich Vinyl, they sandwich urethane. There's a couple other types of high-density foam sheeting that is vacuum bagged. But basically what happens if you look at this is basically 2 layers of glass from the bottom of the glass board. It isn't too strong. Although it suffices. There's been tens of thousands of those, and thousands are still written, and people like them. There's nothing wrong with them. Because they use a urethane core, which is a cubic foot weighs 2 pounds. By the time you shape that blank with the 2 stringers in it, and let's say an 80-liter board, it may weigh 8 pounds. Now, when you use an SDS, when you shape it, because it's a lighter core, it's going to be a lighter core. By the time you shape that, I put a single stringer, weighs about 5 pounds, so I already saved 3 pounds. And if I go to this, I have about 3 and a quarter pound weight to expanded polystyrene, EPS. So the first thing we are talking about is what represents the weight of the board. We know you need X amount of glass to wrap it, X amount of resin to saturate that glass, X amount of fin boxes, inserts, foot straps, pads, all that is neutral. The only thing, the difference between each one of these types of boards, whether it's PU, extruded polystyrene, or expanded polystyrene, is what the core is made out of. And that's the variations of weight. The lighter the core, the lighter the board. So look at sandwich. This again is the 2 layers of glass on a glass board. On the bottom of mine, I use an 8-pound high-density foam. It's a urethane. It's dense, 8 pound, so if I had a cubic foot of it, it would weigh 8 pounds, 4 times denser than the core. It ain't too strong. Until, now, if I take, this is an 1/8 inch, I take a layer of glass on my shaped core, I vacuum bag it down with the sheet foam on it. And after I fine sand the airbrush and go through the process and I laminate the top, it becomes super, super stiff, and I've gained very little weight. The core in here, the sheet foam itself is the lightest thing between the 3 objects, the top skin, the bottom skin, and the core. If I was to go to 1/4 inch, I'm adding weight, but I'm adding 7 times more stiffness. Now, the other type of foam that's real popular in the world is a thing called a Vinyl. It comes in all different densities. This happens to be 5 pounds. It's kind of rubbier. You can bend it, it won't break. There's a urethane. It'll snap, it's more brittle. But on the bottom, we want a higher density foam because when you break a board, you're in compression. On the top, you're pulling. Now, when you take and you laminate that with carbon, you just get a really stiff, strong product. So what we've came over the years, we used, a variety of these technologies to produce the line of boards that we believe are lightest, strongest, less problems. It's just like all the other manufacturers do. So keep in mind that the weight of the blank, the weight of the board is all based on the core. What is the core? I can get, this is 3/4 pound density. If I want a lighter board, I can get this in 1/2 pound. The beads are 4 times as big. But that's the only way I can go with any lighter, or put less glass on. Put less glass on, it gets weaker. So we're all held within this fence and what we can do to produce a light board. So we're sort of at the end of the rope with how light we can make a board and how strong it's got to be. We've gone to carbon, which is the top of the line. We've gone to the lightest core as possible. We've cut the fin box sizes, the amount of inserts, the pads, everything's been cut down, and it's really, really hard to get them any lighter. But that is what the board construction is right now, until they come up with a miracle drug. And there's probably stuff way out there. I know there's really great foam out there that the aerospace industry uses, or NASA, but none of us can afford it. There's probably way better resins. Between the polyester and epoxy, there is really no difference. It's just, what is it? It's glue. You can't use polyester on polystyrene because it melts it. That's why you can't use all epoxy boards. You got to use epoxy resin. Epoxy resin is known as a solid plastic. It has more elongation. It's more flexible. But each of them have great qualities. The biggest problem with polystyrene, whether it's in beaded polystyrene, expanded polystyrene, or extruded, is the low melting points on it. At 160 degrees, they start to get soft and they melt. That's why when you don't pull your vent on your board, you finally, the thing will bubble up, expand, delam. That's all done through heat. So yeah, the more run of the shoe that lasts forever, the longest thing that we've seen through the history of windsurfing is urethane cores. So you have to decide, and that's what these videos is all about. Check, look, what's making you smile. If you're going through a lot of epoxy board because you're just that type of guy that beats things up, then you may want to go into something that's more durable. It doesn't take on as much water. There's just less maintenance or less carrying. So everybody's got to, come down to, like I've always said, what works for you, what makes you smile, and because you're out there smiling yourself. So that's kind of the clue of this video. Again, I thank you for your patience, and remember, we do this for fun. Windsurfing's for fun. Don't get mad at it, because when you get mad at it, Mother Nature's laughing, and the rest of us are too at you. So just be patient, you'll get it. Thanks for the time.